Dr. Alastair Finch moves through the halls of St. Jude's Medical Centre not like a man, but like a weather system. Nurses flatten themselves against the walls. Residents avert their gazes, their clipboards held like shields. He is the storm, the pressure drop, the coming frost. His white coat is impossibly crisp, a shell of bleached authority. His shoes, Italian leather that cost more than a junior nurse's monthly salary, make no sound on the polished linoleum. He is a silent, advancing force. Alastair Finch is the chief of cardiothoracic surgery, a title he wears like a crown forged from scalpels and ego. He does not walk, he presides. He does not speak, he decrees. The air around him is thin, sterilized by his sheer presence. He is a man carved from granite and prejudice, his brilliance in the operating theatre matched only by the profound emptiness of his heart. He sees the world as a hierarchy, and he is its apex predator. Patients are not people, they are puzzles. Complex, messy biological problems to be solved. Successes are jewels in his crown. Failures are statistical anomalies, attributable to the poor quality of the materials he was forced to work with. Today, he is heading toward consultation room 3. A new puzzle awaits. A charity case, his assistant had informed him, with a sniff of disdain that perfectly mimicked his own. A complex congenital heart defect in a 7-year-old. Tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia. A challenging, beautiful problem. But the patient's file contained other, less appealing data. No insurance. Address in the city's poorest district. Single guardian household. To Finch, these were not circumstances, they were comorbidities. They were indicators of a poor outcome, a stain on his perfect record. He pauses outside the door, his reflection staring back from the polished brass number plate. A handsome man, he thinks. Silver at the temples, a jawline that speaks of good breeding. The face of a god in a world of mortals. He smooths his coat, adjusts his tie, and enters. The room is small, sterile, and cold. It smells of antiseptic and fear. Seated in the corner are the puzzle's unfortunate attachments. A small black child, her legs dangling from the oversized patient chair, her eyes wide and dark. Beside her, an elderly woman, her hands clutching a worn handbag in her lap. The woman's face is a roadmap of worry, her posture one of quiet, desperate hope. Her name is Evelyn Reed. She is Maya's grandmother. She is the only family the little girl has. Maya coughs, a small, wet sound that rattles in her tiny chest. Her skin has a faint bluish tint, a telltale sign of the oxygen-starved blood circulating through her body. She is a fragile bird with a broken engine. Evelyn places a gentle hand on her back, rubbing slow, comforting circles. "It's okay, sweet pea," she murmurs, her voice a low hum of love. "The doctor is here to help us." Dr. Finch does not acknowledge the greeting. He doesn't even look at the child. His eyes are fixed on the chart in his hand, his lip curled in a faint sneer. He flips through the pages with sharp, dismissive snaps of his wrist. So, he begins, his voice a booming baritone that is entirely too large for the small room. "This is the patient." He says the word patients as if it were a distasteful substance in his mouth. A young resident, Dr. Ramirez, stands nervously in the corner, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Yes, Dr. Finch," Ramirez stammers. "Maya Williams. 7 years old. As you can see from the echo, the VSD is significant, and the pulmonary artery is almost completely undeveloped." Finch waves a dismissive hand, silencing him. "I can read a chart, Ramirez. I do not require your kindergarten-level summarization." He finally lifts his gaze, but it lands on Evelyn, not Maya. He scans her from head to toe. He sees her simple dress, her worn-out shoes, the tired lines around her eyes. His gaze is an appraisal, a judgment. He has already found her wanting. "You are the legal guardian," he asks. The question is an accusation. "I am," Evelyn says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm her grandmother." "I see." 2 words loaded with a universe of contempt. He sees poverty. He sees a burden on the system. He sees a statistical inevitability. He turns his attention back to the chart, tapping a perfectly manicured finger on the admissions form. No private insurance. On state assistance. Is that correct? Evelyn flinches but holds his gaze. Yes, that's correct. And you understand the complexity of the procedure required here, he continues, his tone condescending, as if explaining rocket science to a toddler. The surgery, a Rastelli procedure, is extraordinarily demanding. It requires hours of bypass, a homograft conduit, extensive reconstruction. The resources involved are insignificant. I understand it's the only thing that can save her life, Evelyn says, her voice quiet but firm. Finch gives a short, barking laugh. It is a sound utterly devoid of humor. Save her life is a rather optimistic turn of phrase, wouldn't you say? The long-term prognosis for cases from this demographic is historically poor. Compliance with post-operative care, follow-up appointments, medication regimens, it's a significant challenge. He is not talking about medicine anymore. He is talking about class. He is talking about race. He is building a wall of jargon and prejudice, brick by condescending brick. Dr. Ramirez shifts uncomfortably. Sir, her vitals have been stable, and she's responded well to the prostaglandin infusion. She's a strong candidate. Ramirez, Finch snaps, his voice dropping to a dangerous hiss. When I require the opinion of a resident who still smells of the textbook ink on his diploma, I will explicitly ask for it. Until then, your role is to observe and, if possible, learn. Do you understand? Yes, Dr. Finch, Ramirez mutters, his face flushing with shame. Finch turns his full, chilling attention back to Evelyn. He closes the file with a definitive thud. The sound echoes in the silent room like a gavel. Look, he says, adopting a tone of feigned reasonableness that is more insulting than his open contempt. I am a very busy man. My time, and the resources of this hospital's cardiothoracic unit, are reserved for patients with the highest probability of a successful long-term outcome. We are a world-class institution, not a public clinic. He leans forward, placing his hands on the examination table. I will not be performing this surgery. The words land like stones. Each one a blow. Evelyn's breath catches in her throat. Hope, which had been a flickering candle in the cold room, is extinguished. What? She whispers. But they said you were the best. They said you were the only one who could. Precisely, Finch interrupts, a smug smile playing on his lips. I am the best. And because I am the best, I have the luxury of choosing my cases. I choose to invest my skills where they will yield the greatest return. This, he gestures vaguely toward Maya, who shrinks back from his cold gaze, is not a sound investment. This is the peak of his cruelty. The moment of maximum humiliation. He is not just refusing care. He is passing a death sentence with the casual arrogance of a man swatting a fly. Please, Evelyn begs, her composure finally cracking. Tears well in her eyes. Please, doctor. She's just a little girl. She has her whole life ahead of her. Don't do this. Her plea hangs in the air, raw and desperate. Finch's expression hardens. He is disgusted by her display of emotion. He sees it as weakness, a confirmation of his prejudice. Your sentimentality is as misplaced as your presence here, he says, his voice like ice. She is a drain on the system, a product of unfortunate circumstances. Frankly, her genetic lottery wasn't a winning 1 inch. He straightens up, his decision final. Now, I have a board meeting to attend. Dr. Ramirez will arrange for her transfer to County General. I'm sure they're better equipped to handle situations like this. He turns to leave. He has dismissed them. Erased them from his world. But then, a voice cuts through the sterile air. A voice that is no longer trembling or pleading. It is calm. It is clear. It is charged with an authority that makes the mighty Dr. Alastair Finch freeze in his tracks. Stop. It is a single word. Spoken by Evelyn Reed. Finch turned slowly, an expression of irritated disbelief on his face. I beg your pardon. Evelyn rises from her chair. And in that simple movement, everything changes. She is no longer a frail, worried grandmother. Her back is straight. Her chin is high. The years of worry seem to fall from her face, replaced by a look of focused, glacial intensity. The woman who stands before him now is someone else entirely. I said, stop, she repeats, her voice resonating with a power that fills the room. She takes a step forward. Finch, for the first time, takes an involuntary step back. Who do you think you are? He sputters, his arrogance faltering. Evelyn's eyes, which had been soft with worry, are now as sharp and piercing as surgical steel. Dr. Ramirez, she says, her gaze never leaving Finch's. In the hospital's digital archives, you will find personnel files dating back 30 years. Please pull up the residency file for Dr. Alastair Finch. Ramirez stares, confused. Do it, she commands, and the force in her voice makes him jump. He fumbles for his tablet, his hands shaking. Finch lets out a scornful laugh, trying to regain control. This is absurd. Who is this woman? Security. I want this woman removed from my hospital at once. Specifically, Evelyn continues, ignoring him completely, I want you to look at his fellowship records. The fellowship he served under the hospital's then chief of cardiothoracic surgery. A program he almost failed. Finch's face goes pale. A flicker of something, recognition, fear, the dances in his eyes. This is preposterous, he says, his voice a little too loud, a little too shrill. Evelyn takes another step closer, her presence now utterly commanding. She looks him dead in the eye. The moment stretches, time itself seeming to hold its breath. Then she delivers the blow. My name, she says, each word a perfectly placed incision, is Dr. Eleanor Vance. Silence. A profound, deafening silence. The name hangs in the air like smoke, instantly recognizable to anyone in the medical profession. Dr. Eleanor Vance. A legend. A ghost. The woman who pioneered the very surgical techniques that made Finch famous. The architect of the modern cardiothoracic field. The brilliant, demanding, revolutionary surgeon who had vanished from public life 15 years ago after a personal tragedy. Ramirez drops his tablet. It clatters to the floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the stunned silence. His mouth hangs open, his eyes wide with disbelief and awe. He is looking at a living myth. Alastair Finch's face collapses. The color drains from it, leaving a waxy, grey pallor. The arrogant sneer melts away, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. He stares at the woman in the simple dress and worn-out shoes. And he sees her. He sees the mentor who screamed at him in the operating room for a misplaced stitch. He sees the chief who grilled him for hours on end about obscure medical journals. He sees the titan of surgery whose approval he had desperately, pathetically craved. He sees the black woman whose genius he had built his entire career upon, even as he spent that career scorning and dismissing people who looked just like her. Doctor? Vance, he whispers, the name a ragged, choked sound. The power dynamic in the room has not just shifted. It has been annihilated. The king is naked. The god is mortal. And his judge has arrived. Dr. Vance, Evelyn no more, begins her systematic dismantling of the man before her. Her voice is cold, precise, and utterly devoid of emotion. It is the voice of a surgeon identifying a cancer. You misread the angiogram, Alastair, she begins, her tone clinical. You fixated on the ventricular septal defect, but you missed the subtle stenosis in the left anterior descending artery. It's a classic presentation in this specific variant of the syndrome. A first-year resident mistake. Finch flinches as if struck. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. Did you even read my 2004 paper on aortic root anomalies in pediatric patients? She continues, relentlessly. It was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Page 342. I specifically detailed this exact complication. But of course, you wouldn't have. You were always intellectually lazy. You memorized procedures, but you never understood the principles. She takes a step toward him, and he stumbles backward, bumping into the examination table. The hunter has become the prey. You called my granddaughter's case a poor investment, she says, a flicker of cold fire in her eyes. Let's talk about your investments, shall we? Like your shares in Omnimed Pharmaceuticals. The same company whose experimental valve conduit you've been implanting in patients without fully disclosing the preliminary failure rates. A clear conflict of interest. A flagrant violation of every ethical code this hospital stands for. Finch's breath is coming in ragged gasps. He looks wildly around the room, seeking an escape that doesn't exist. How could you know that? Because I still have friends on the ethics board, Vance replies flatly. Because unlike you, I built my career on integrity, not graft. I built relationships, not a fragile empire of fear. She turns her attention to the petrified resident. Dr. Ramirez. Yes, Dr. Vance, he answers immediately, his voice filled with reverence. Please retrieve my granddaughter's chart. And while you're at it, place a call to the chairman of the board, Mr. David Davenport. Tell him Eleanor Vance is in consultation room 3. Tell him there has been a serious, career-ending breach of professional conduct. And tell him to bring hospital security. The name Davenport is the final nail in Finch's coffin. David Davenport had been a young, ambitious hospital administrator when Vance was at her peak. He revered her. He had personally funded her research, championed her work, and considered her a close friend. Finch knows this. He knows he is utterly, irrevocably doomed. His composure shatters completely. The arrogant surgeon vanishes, replaced by a desperate, pathetic man. Eleanor, please, he begs, his voice cracking. Dr. Vance. Please, it was a misunderstanding. I was under pressure. The board, the numbers, they push us for results. They push us to save lives, Alistair, she corrects him, her voice like a razor. A concept you seem to have forgotten. You weren't making a professional assessment back there. You were indulging in your own petty bigotry. You looked at a 7-year-old child, and you didn't see a patient in need. You saw an inconvenience. A statistic. A stain. He lunges forward, grabbing her arm. Don't do this to me. You can't. I'm the chief of surgery. I built this department. You built it on my foundation, she says, pulling her arm away with a look of utter disgust. And now, I am demolishing it. The door to the consultation room bursts open. Standing there is David Davenport, chairman of the board. He is older now, his hair white, but his eyes are sharp and intelligent. Behind him stand 2 grim-faced security guards. Davenport's eyes scan the room, the terrified Ramirez, the blubbering Finch, the calm and commanding figure of Dr. Vance, and the small child watching from the chair. His gaze lands on Vance. A slow smile of recognition and disbelief spreads across his face. Eleanor, he says, his voice thick with emotion. My God. It really is you. Hello, David, she replies, her expression softening for a brief moment. It's been too long. Davenport's smile vanishes as he turns his furious gaze upon Finch. What is going on here? Dr. Ramirez called me, he said. Vance interrupts smoothly, that your esteemed chief of surgery just refused life-saving treatment for my granddaughter based on her race and socio-economic status. He called her a drain on the system and an unlucky draw in this genetic lottery. She holds up a small, discreet digital recorder. And I have his exact words right here. She presses a button. Finch's booming, arrogant voice fills the small room, replaying his litany of cruelties. Not a sound investment. Drain on the system. Genetic lottery wasn't a winning one. Each word is a fresh shovel of dirt on the grave of his career. Davenport's face becomes a thundercloud of pure rage. He has spent decades building the hospital's reputation for compassion and excellence. In 5 minutes, Finch has threatened to burn it all to the ground. Finch, he roars, his voice echoing in the hallway. Is this true? Finch can only stammer, his eyes wide with panic. David. Mr. Davenport, it was taken out of context. I don't hear any context that makes that acceptable, Davenport snarls. Dr. Alastair Finch, you are suspended, effective immediately. Your clinical privileges are revoked pending a full board review. I want you off these premises now. He gestures to the security guards. Escort this man to his office. Have him collect his personal belongings. Then escort him out of my hospital. He is not to set foot on this property again. The guards, who minutes before would have cowered before the great Dr. Finch, step forward with grim satisfaction. One of them, a large man with a weary face, takes Finch's arm in a firm grip. Come on, Doc. The public humiliation is swift and brutal. They walk him into the main corridor of the surgical wing. His corridor. His kingdom. Nurses and doctors stop and stare, their mouths agape, as the chief of surgery is frog-marched past them like a common criminal. Davenport is not finished. Wait, he commands. The guards stop. Davenport strides up to Finch. With a look of profound contempt, he reaches out, grabs the lapels of Finch's pristine white coat, and rips it from his shoulders. He throws the coat to the floor. The symbolic act is devastating. He has been publicly stripped of his authority, his identity, his power. He is no longer Dr. Finch, the god of the operating room. He is just Alastair Finch, a man in an expensive suit, exposed and shamed. As they drag him away, a whimpering, broken shell of a man, he looks back one last time. His eyes meet Vance's. They are filled with a toxic cocktail of hatred, disbelief, and pathetic pleading. Dr. Vance looks at the man she once tried to mold, the student who had squandered every gift she had given him. She offers him one final, devastating lesson. The first thing I ever taught you, Alastair, she says, her voice carrying clearly down the hall. The very first principle of our profession. Primum non nocere first, do no harm. A bitter, ironic smile touches her lips. You failed the first lesson. He disappears around the corner, his career a smouldering ruin. In the silence that follows, Dr. Vance turns and walks back into the room. She kneels before her granddaughter. The legendary surgeon is gone again, replaced by the loving grandmother. It's all right now, my sweet pea, she says softly, stroking Maya's hair. Grandma's here. We're going to fix your heart. The fallout is not a storm. It is a biblical flood. It washes away Alastair Finch and every rotten piece of the system that enabled him. The official review board hearing is a formality. Armed with Dr. Vance's testimony and the damning audio recording, the board unanimously votes to permanently revoke Finch's medical license. The word is sent to every medical board in the country, and then the world. He is blacklisted. A pariah. The hospital, under Davenport's furious direction, sues him for gross misconduct and breach of contract, citing the reputational damage and the ethical violations regarding Omnimed Pharmaceuticals. The lawsuit is swift and merciless. They freeze his assets. They seize his accounts. His vast fortune, built on arrogance and backroom deals, evaporates into a cloud of legal fees and penalties. His mansion in the wealthy suburbs is sold to cover his debts. His collection of luxury cars is repossessed. But that is only the beginning. The story hits the news, first as a local scandal, then as a national outrage. Genius surgeon denies care to child, brought down by secret mentor. The headlines are a nightmare from which he can never awaken. And with the publicity comes the floodgates. Dozens of other families come forward. Families of color, poor families, immigrant families. All with similar stories. Stories of Finch's dismissiveness, his contempt, his medical negligence when faced with a patient he deemed unworthy of his talents. A massive class action lawsuit is filed against him and against the hospital for enabling him for so long. The hospital, eager to distance itself from the disgrace and guided by Vance and Davenport, settles quickly and generously. The settlement money comes directly from Finch's remaining assets and his seized pension. He is left with nothing. Less than nothing. He is a man in perpetual, self-inflicted exile. He tries to find work, any work. A consultant, a researcher, even a lecturer at a third-rate medical school in some forgotten corner of the world. But the name Alastair Finch is poison. The doors are slammed in his face. His colleagues, the ones who once laughed at his cruel jokes and fawned over his success, no longer take his calls. They scatter like roaches when the light is turned on, desperate to avoid being tainted by his spectacular fall. His wife, a woman who married his status and his bank account, leaves him without a backward glance, taking what little is left. He ends up alone, in a small, drab apartment that smells of stale coffee and regret, living off a pittance from Social Security. His days are spent rereading old medical journals, tracing the lines of surgical diagrams with a trembling finger, a king remembering a lost kingdom. His nights are haunted by the face of a small black child and the voice of the woman who destroyed him. His ruin is total. It is absolute. It is karmic. For the heroes, the world is reborn. Dr. Eleanor Vance, coaxed out of her self-imposed retirement by a desperate David Davenport, agrees to stay. She scrubs in for Maya's surgery herself. In the operating theatre, she is not an old woman. She is a master at her craft. Her hands, which once clutched a worn handbag, are now steady, precise, and brilliant. She moves with an economy of motion that is breathtaking to behold. Dr. Ramirez, whom she personally requested as her assistant, watches in awe. He learns more in those 6 hours at her side than he did in 4 years of medical school. The surgery is a flawless success. A masterpiece. Maya's recovery is swift and complete. The bluish tint to her skin vanishes, replaced by a healthy, rosy glow. Her laughter, once weak and breathless, now fills the hospital corridors. The hospital offers the family a massive, multi-million-dollar settlement as an apology, which Evelyn accepts on Maya's behalf, placing it into a trust for her future. But Davenport wants to do more. He offers Vance a blank check. Anything, he says. Name it, Eleanor. A research lab? A new wing? Anything you want. Vance thinks for a moment. I want a foundation, she says. I want to create a new division within this hospital. A division dedicated to providing the highest standard of care to the underserved, the uninsured, the forgotten. No one will ever be turned away from this hospital for the reasons Alastair Finch used again. And so, the Eleanor Vance Foundation for Medical Justice is born. Funded by a historic $50 million endowment from the hospital board, it becomes a beacon of hope. Dr. Vance becomes its first director. Dr. Ramirez, her handpicked protégé, becomes her second-in-command. He thrives under her mentorship, his idealism now tempered with her strength and wisdom. He becomes the doctor he was always meant to be. The Foundation's work causes ripples throughout the entire medical industry. It forces other institutions to re-examine their own biases, to dismantle their own systemic prejudices. The story of Alastair Finch becomes a cautionary tale, a landmark case study taught in every medical ethics class in the nation. A warning against the mortal sins of arrogance and prejudice. 2 years later. The sun streams through the massive windows of the newly constructed Vance Center for Medical Justice. It is not a place that smells of fear and antiseptic. It is bright, airy, and filled with the sounds of children's laughter from the colorful waiting area. The staff is a vibrant tapestry of faces from every background imaginable. The art on the walls was painted by local artists from the very communities the center now serves. It is the physical embodiment of a new promise. Dr. Eleanor Vance, now in her early 70s but looking decades younger, stands before a group of new residents. She wears a crisp white coat, but hers is not a suit of armor. It is a uniform of service. Beside her stands a confident, self-assured Dr. Ramirez, now a respected attending physician. Never forget, Vance tells the young doctors, her voice warm but firm, that the person on the table is not a puzzle. They are not a disease. They are a universe of hopes and fears, of love and loss. They are someone's child, someone's parent, someone's world. She pauses, letting the words sink in. Your talent, she continues, your knowledge, your skilled hands, they are meaningless without empathy. Your power is not a weapon to be wielded over the weak. It is a shield to protect the vulnerable. Never, ever forget that. A small figure comes running down the hall, pigtails flying. Grandma L. It is Maya. She is 9 years old now, vibrant and healthy, a whirlwind of energy. She leaps into Vance's arms, holding up a crayon drawing. It's a picture of two women, one old and one young, holding hands under a smiling sun. Above them, she has written, "My heroes." Vance hugs her granddaughter tightly, her heart full. She looks over Maya's head at the young, hopeful faces of the new generation of doctors. She sees a future where the Alastair Finches of the world will find no quarter, no shelter for their hate. The moral of this story is etched into the very walls of the new building. Arrogance is a sickness of the soul, a cancer that consumes its host from the inside out. Prejudice is a poison, and those who drink it, believing they are harming others, will inevitably find that they have only poisoned themselves. Justice can be a slow, quiet force, sometimes hidden for years behind a worn dress and a worried smile. But when it arrives, it is a force of nature. It does not just punish the wicked. It clears the ground, uproots the rot, and in its place, allows something new, and something better, to grow.